Hello and welcome to our Rangam Empathy Drives Innovation Series, or REDi series, where we bring you blogs, chats, webinars, and other features that help you accelerate your career journey. I am Vice President of Global Marketing for Rangam, Jerry Greider. And whether you're a job seeker, an employer, an educator, or community partner, REDi has something for everyone. We're excited to be here today to share with you the latest developments in the series. With our mission of accelerating meaningful employment for everyone, REDi is the perfect platform to help you achieve your goals. Today's REDi Chat is about neurodiverse hiring programs, removing barriers, encouraging participation, and creating an inclusive workplace. I'd like to welcome our experts today, Chelsea Asaro, Director of Fulfillment and Client Engagement Management for Rangam's Source-Abled Solution, and Dave Kieran, Rangam's Senior Strategic Partner Director with our Solutions team. Welcome to you both.
Thanks, Jerry.
If we go to our next slide here, what we're going to cover in this presentation today is the definition of neurodiversity, understanding neurodiversity hiring programs, the hiring process, misconceptions and concerns, neurodiversity in the workplace, success stories, and some next steps. So to kick it off, what is neurodiversity?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jerry. And I think people are hearing this term more and more. If you've been, familiar with kind of the autism and ADHD communities, this really began with those in mind, but it has grown to expand. And it's really a terrific, brain-based way of understanding differences in normal part of human variation in our brain. So brain differences, just as normal and naturally occurring as other differences in the way we approach the world, or even inherent, characteristics like our skin color, our height, and eye color, etc. This is not about judgment. This is not about what's better or what's worse. It's simply about fully understanding the full person, the whole person, and not just their medical diagnosis, right? This is a biological fact that we have this wide diversity. So again, no judgment, but we all are part of this neurodiversity. Now, if we want to move to the next slide, please, we can talk a little bit about this term being used now as a kind of umbrella term that includes what we consider neurodivergence. So conditions like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, Tourette's syndrome, and other neurological conditions, as well as what we call neurotypicality. So if you're neurotypical, you're someone who does not have a neurological condition, but you still fit within this larger neurodiversity umbrella. And one thing that's nice that I think a positive about this development is we're moving away from what we used to call the medical model, and that was where you're identified basically by your disability, by your diagnosis. So if you were diagnosed autistic, that became a huge part of your identity and really focusing on the deficits. Where were your challenges? Where were your struggles? This is really looking at it from a different lens, what we call the social model, looking at really the full person, all that they bring to the table, not just their deficits, but what about their strengths and their skills and their passions and all the things that they bring to the table. And then the last piece of this neurodiversity movement that's really important for us in this discussion is, okay, if we're going to embrace these human differences and acknowledge that these are naturally occurring, wonderful, they need to be embraced and nurtured. How are we preparing the workforce and the workplace for them? How do we make sure that those systems and those environments are there to help support these people and their unique skills and assets that they can bring to the workforce? So neurodiversity, neurodivergence is not a disability itself, Jerry, but it's often associated with disabilities, with mental illnesses, et cetera, that may need support in the workforce. So I hope that gives a little bit of a description of this really wide and vast community. And the last piece I'll add is that there's a real focus on self-advocacy that I really like in this community. That's really about arming and empowering people to speak up, or to communicate however they can, and ask for what they need to be successful. And I think that's a really empowering, positive part of neurodiversity.
And if I could just piggyback off of that, Dave, yeah, I definitely neurodiversity. What I like to say, it's a new word. It's a word that started in the 1990s that really evolved into a concept that now has truly become a movement. And as Dave mentioned, it's very strengths based, and it focuses on what people can bring to the table, and then how to give them everything they need to be successful. Now, if you can go to the next slide, there's another important concept involved in neurodiversity that might be another new word for some people that I wanted to bring up, and that's that of intersectionality. Now, if you look at these graphics, the one on the left, it really represents our traditional way of viewing identity, where we really look at to identify a person and put them in a box. You know, once we find out one thing about them, that becomes who they are to us. You know, whether if you just have find out that discover someone has a disability, well, then that becomes the main defining component of their disability. But that's not really a very accurate way of viewing humans. If you look over on the right, I think that's probably a more accurate representation of who we are. None of us are just one thing. We all have several different pieces that make up our identity. And that's what we want people to know about us. So we don't want to be identified just by our diagnosis or our cognitive difference. We also want people to know that we are, I'm a woman, I'm of a certain age, I'm a Christian, I am neurodivergent, I am a parent, I am a professional. And so all of these things make up who I am. And these are the things I want to be able to bring with me to the workplace and whatever team I'm on.
No, that's great information. Thanks to you both for that. So as we're trying to understand, neurodiversity hiring programs, help us understand, what are neurodiversity hiring programs?
That's a great question, Jerry. And I'll start this one off for us, Dave, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like there's a lot of buzz out there about neurodiversity hiring programs, but I think there's a lot of confusion and misconceptions, and people are wondering what exactly is a neurodiversity hiring program. And basically, it's a special employment hiring program, as it says, that companies really invest in order to create more opportunities for neurodivergent talent. It's a way for them to be able to create opportunities and create a path to employment within their companies that's going to be neurodiversity friendly and neuro-inclusive. Now, each company does their neurodiversity hiring program a little different. They might have different focuses of their program, but I do think that there tend to have three key elements to all neurodiversity programs. The first tends to be training. And so most companies engaged in neurodiversity hiring programs will offer training to their existing employees about the benefits of hiring neurodivergent talent, as well as some of the challenges they face and how to support them. So training is a big piece in order to lay the foundation for inclusion at those companies before hiring. But then the programs also tend to include and really be focused on creating a friendlier, more inclusive hiring process for people with cognitive differences. Now, how they do that can look very different from company to company, but it really is just trying to remove the barriers, understanding that, up until now, the biggest barrier to employment for people with neurodivergence has been that traditional hiring process, specifically the interview. So a lot of times it does look to rethink that interview to really make it a better way to assess what a person can bring to the table. And then the third component is on the job support and making sure, like I said, that everyone has what they need to be successful. And so really making sure that accommodations are in place and that additional layers of support are there as well to help them succeed in their current job, but also as they continue to grow with the company.
No, that's great. And you talked benefits for job seekers. As we go to the next slide, what are some of the benefits, or how do they benefit job seekers?
Yeah, I'll take this one, Chelsea. Well, first and foremost, the most obvious, right? And we haven't addressed this yet, but we have huge unemployment and underemployment estimates for the neurodivergent community, not just in the United States. This is pretty consistent globally. As high as 85, 90%, really high unemployment and underemployment. So this immediately, right off the bat, this increases those employment opportunities. The other part that this is really important is that it's visible, that companies are loud and proud about their interest, and its genuine interest in neurodiverse talent, that for the first time, perhaps, they are seeking you out and you have reason to disclose. And we're going to cover this a little bit later, but this really has flipped on its head. So these job seekers are truly benefiting from companies, first of all, having trouble recruiting and retaining good workers. So they're starting to think outside the box. Where have we not searched? And the best part is the companies are seeing the business value, right? They're seeing the return. When this is about charity, this doesn't go very far. If it's like, we're going to appeal to your better angels to do something right for the community, that gets a small pilot off the ground that ends a year later. We need to see sustainable, real, true embedding these practices in the companies, and that happens only from experience. So the companies that have been hiring these people are showing the returns, the business returns, right? So that really helps our candidates. That really proves the business case to them. The other thing is that this really leverages the strengths and abilities, the unique profile of people who are neurodivergent, right? So for the first time, these companies are recognizing, okay, we're not going to try to force you, this round block, into the square hole. We're going to try and make sure we can make supports and arrangements to make sure that we can fit your strengths, your abilities, and support you to do the work that we're hiring you to do. And lastly, this is very important. These organizations, these companies, and these initiatives understand some of those reasons for discomfort or skepticism and wanting to protect one's confidentiality when they're disclosing a disability. It's very important. So these companies are understanding this. They hire people with autism to help lead these initiatives, that I think is really important. So those kind of are the signs that I look for in how these benefit the job seekers.
That's really good information. And so we've talked about job seekers. How do neurodiversity hiring programs benefit employers?
And I'll take that one. I think we have a slide as well. Yeah, there we go. You can tell we've rehearsed this a little bit, everyone. Benefits for employers. So as Dave mentioned, this isn't just a social good, it's good for business. And I think that we all know now that diverse teams are better, and that goes beyond diversity of gender or skin color or background or education. That also goes to diversity of thought. So by hiring people with cognitive differences, you're really able to bring innovative approaches to problem solving and to avoid that group think that we all know is not good for business. Some of the other benefits that companies who have engaged in neurodiversity hiring programs have called out is there does seem to be a higher retention rate for employees hired through neurodiversity hiring programs because of some of the things that Dave mentioned, because these employees now feel like they can truly bring their whole selves to work, and they feel supported and they feel like they can be successful. So there are much higher retention rates found. It's also been shown that neurodivergent employees coming in through these programs have a higher productivity and efficiency in a lot of cases. So a lot of real business benefits. But one of the surprising spillover benefits that companies have found that especially the early adopters that they weren't expecting in participating in these programs was the benefit to their existing employee base. Now, if you think about it, the CDC recently changed their incidence rate for autism specifically. It's 1 in 44. Now, when we expand that to all neurodivergent conditions, you can see that there is a very large footprint. It really does cast a wide net and impact a lot of people. So there are a lot of people out there, even if they're not neurodivergent themselves, they have family members and they're supporting people with neurodivergence. And these programs matter to them because they really help them answer that question of, will there be a place for my loved one, for my child, when they grow up, a place where they can contribute and have meaningful employment? So that's a huge benefit to their existing employees. It's also been found to be a real talent attraction strategy for companies. Because there are a lot of people, especially the younger generation of workers, where corporate social responsibility matters, and it matters to them to see that companies are really investing in doing the right thing, and they want to know that the company that they go to work for really appreciates the talent of neurodivergent employees. These are workers who grew up having people with autism and other differences in their classrooms. Now they're looking in their workspaces and saying, why aren't they here? And they get it, they appreciate them, they understand the value, and they want to see that their companies do too. So it becomes a talent attraction play as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I'll just echo that. I mean, Chelsea said it so well. I know specifically of one industry where a company recognized they were losing young recruits, right? The Gen Z type recruits to their competitors, specifically because those competitors had neurodiversity hiring programs and this firm didn't. And the candidate was not neurodiverse himself. it was important to him, just like it is to so many of these young workers, what the company stands for, what they do beyond the day-to-day, and how they make their money. How else are they impacting the community, and how are they including people who come from diverse backgrounds? It's really important to this generation, and it absolutely adds an attraction to
and I've got to say one more thing. There's a bottom line to the business, which is important, and these programs only succeed if we can make the business case for them. But there's also the bottom line to society, and this doesn't get talked about near enough, I think. But the cost for supporting an unemployed person with autism, now that doesn't include other neurodivergents, but to provide them services, to provide them, the income they need to live, it's been hovering around $100,000 a year. Now that is money that is funded by taxpayer dollars. So it's important to us as a society to be able to create these opportunities. Everyone wants to be productive. Everyone wants to work and be able to contribute. And so there's a lot of benefits behind these programs.
Yeah, clearly. And thank you for that. So we're talking about these programs. How can job seekers find and participate in neurodiversity hiring programs, and what resources are available to them?
Yeah, and I get this question all the time, and that is, now that the awareness is starting to get out and people are starting to find out about these and want to participate, the next question is how do I know which companies have programs? How do I find what opportunities are available? Of course, this is my time to talk about SourceAbled. So we would love to connect with any neurodivergent job seekers out there. We represent many wonderful client partners that have neurodiversity hiring programs that are actively looking for you, and we would love to help connect you. And the best way to do that is to register as a job seeker at sourceable.com. Once you do that, it's very easy. You're contacted immediately by one of our staffing professionals who's going to set up a time to talk to you about what the opportunities are you're looking for, what your background and experience is, and how we can partner in your job search. But I'll give you another resource as well. The Neurodiversity Career Connector is also a great platform. They have a website where companies who are involved in the Neurodiversity at Work Employers Roundtable all use this as a platform to post their open positions. So that's kind of it's like the Indeed for neurodiversity hiring programs. So I would definitely check that out as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. So if we go to the next slide, you can see, kind of the process here. Go through this process once real quick. I know you kind of gave an overview, but with what we have on screen here.
No, would love to do that, because I know job seekers want to know what to expect if they engage with us. And that is actually just neurodiversity best practices, is to make the unknown known as much as possible. So it's very simple. You go to sourceable.com, you click on register as a job seeker, and you fill out your profile. You can upload a resume there or not, or you can just provide your basic contact information. As soon as you do that, within about 24 hours, you'll receive an outreach email, like I said, from one of our staffing professionals who will be looking to set up an appointment with you. Again, this is not an interview. It's just a meet and greet. We want to get to know you. We want to understand the skills. We want to understand the types of jobs you're looking for, what your background are, what some of the support needs that you have. We love to include other people who are involved in your job search as well. So if you have a job coach, if you have a support provider, if you have a parent who is helping you make decisions or guiding you on this path, or even a mentor, love to have other people involved in the conversation. So that's just a 30-minute meet and greet, and we set that up. But even before that, you can go online and search for our available positions and apply right there directly online. And once you do that, that will also trigger a connect with one of our recruiters. So feel free to go ahead and search and apply for any jobs that interest you. The one cautionary word of warning I have is not even warning, but just advice to make sure to check back frequently, because we are constantly, every day, we are filling positions, but we're adding new positions. And you can also set up job alerts to notify you when new positions are uploaded. And so then you can also go back online and track your status of your application. And we are going to continue to work with you. We do want to partner in your job search until we're able to find that opportunity that you're looking for.
And if I could just add, Jerry, to what Chelsea was saying, this can also be used by a service provider. So if you are a provider out there and you're supporting 10, 12, 20 candidates, however it might be, or students that you might be working with in your school or university, you too can use these tools, help your students or job seekers register, and you can have insight into their progress, into their activities as well. So we really encourage you as a provider to register on SourceAbled. That way you can connect directly with us, with the businesses, and manage your candidates as well.
Yeah, we want to be a tool in your toolkit for job search, both for job seekers and for the providers who are helping them. So please check us out.
That's really, really, really great advice. And if we could go to our next slide. So what's the eligibility?
So this is an interesting question. So we took a moment there because this is an interesting question where we've been talking a lot about the strengths, right? And the neurodiversity framework, movement, however you want to describe it, is really strengths based, and it's really positive, and that's all important. However, when we then talk about eligibility for certain programs, or especially for public supports, so supports through vocational rehabilitation, job coach, or some other kind of support service like that, then sometimes we do have to come across this question of eligibility. And I just wanted to talk about, when we talk about eligibility, that typically means level of deficit. Right? That's how the government will measure, do you need help from the government? So they're going to measure your, basically how much deficit or challenge you have. What is your level of disability? That is what they're looking for. This is going back to that medical model, okay? So while we have talked about this movement and moving away from the medical model, unfortunately, the way we still fund these kinds of programs and supports is using the old medical model. Now, I want to just take a minute. Chelsea and I talk about this quite a bit. People with neurodivergence, people with autism, ADHD, don't fit neatly into any box where they feel like they're disabled or not, a person with a disability or a person without disability. Often it changes and it's context dependent. So let me just tell you one brief story about one person with autism and how within one day his autism impacts him differently. So let's use this guy. His name is John. I'm making up his name, but he's based on a real person. John is autistic. He's a museum docent at a Museum of Modern Art. And John is the best docent you've ever had because John's special interest is modern art. It matches up perfectly with his job. He knows everything about every piece of work in that museum. He knows funny anecdotes about the artists. The other docents will stop their tours to say, John, what was that funny story you had about this one? He's awesome at his job, in part because his autism contributes to that. It is a strength for him in that context. After work, though, when I tried to talk to John about baseball or his coworkers invite him to go out for a drink, happy hour, now his autism, it's not a strength anymore. It's not a disability either, but it's a difference, and it's maybe starting to interfere or create some challenges for him, but he's able to navigate and figure things out. When John goes home, however, unbeknownst to his coworkers, his autism now is a full-blown disability. John absolutely needs help at home, keeping himself safe, keeping appointments, staying on top of his diet and his medications, etc. So within this same day, John's autism was a strength, then it was a difference, and then it was a disability. And I think we need to kind of open our minds to how neurodivergence especially, but how all of these conditions impact people as the whole person in different times, different places, different contexts. So your autism may absolutely be a strength in most areas of your life, but if it is negatively affecting you in some areas where you do need some supports, we're encouraging you to embrace these things because it is the way the system works and it's the way that you can get those supports. Chelsea, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I love that story, by the way. I think that really is a great illustration about how a person can be impacted in different ways, even on the same day. But the other thing I want to call out, first of all, is to be eligible for our SourceAbled programs, we don't require any formal diagnosis. As Dave mentioned, you may need a formal diagnosis if you're going to request accommodations on the job. But for us, all we ask is if you think you can benefit. If you identify as a person with neurodivergence and you can benefit from this, then you're eligible for these programs. And the other thing one other thing, there is no cost to providers or to job seekers for partnering with us in their job search. So that's everything, all the costs of our program are paid by our employers who really understand the value of hiring people with neurodivergence. But I would also want to call out that a lot of people, we talk with a lot of job seekers who don't, are like, I don't think of myself as disabled. I have PTSD, I have anxiety, I have ADHD, and it's a difference, but it's not really a disability for me, and I don't need support. So I don't think I'm eligible for these programs. And that's the thing I want to shout from the rooftops these days is you absolutely are, and you can absolutely benefit from these programs. And actually the way the programs are structured is based on universal design. So in actuality, they would be better for all people. And of course, our goal is that eventually the hiring process will look like this for everyone. But definitely people, not just people with autism who do identify with a disability or other people with neurodivergence that need a higher level of support. These programs can be really great for people with anxiety, PTSD, mental health conditions. And that's been what's been interesting for me is helping other people and seeing people who didn't even know about these programs, connecting them to a job through the programs, and them going, I had no idea that work could be like this. Now I came into the interview and they gave me the interview questions in advance so I could prepare, and that really helped my social anxiety. I went into the job and they took me out of the bullpen environment and gave me a quiet workplace to work, which helped my ADHD so much. And I've been so productive and effective because of it. So I really would like to encourage people with any type of neurodivergence to be open to these types of hiring programs.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, Chelsea. I realized I kind of got a little off track talking about like the system and the need for a diagnosis. For us to use SourceAbled, you do not require a diagnosis. It's just that you identify as being neurodiverse. Yeah, right. Thanks, Chelsea.
No, that's great. And we're already on this next slide, and I think we covered a little bit of it.
I think we got that one. Yeah.
Let's go to our next slide. What are some common misconceptions? You covered that a little bit. What other concerns should neurodiverse job seekers or are you seeing from them?
Yeah, I can kick this one off, Chelsea. The one that I hear a lot, and I think people who are neurodiverse have good reason to be skeptical, right? So like, is this for real, or am I going to be used as a token? And this I've heard a lot, right? Like, are these companies just doing this so they can check a box, just like they hired people of color and they hired women to check boxes? They weren't really genuine about it, and that's a serious concern. I think you're right to be skeptical. But what we're here to tell you is this is genuine. This is for real. These companies are serious about it. They're investing money in training, in changing their processes to find and keep people like you. This has really changed in the last 4 or 5 years. Chelsea and I have been at this for a long time. This has really flipped. And so you are right to be skeptical. You're right to be cynical. But do your research, talk to others. What my best advice is, ask the company. I talk to someone who identifies as neurodivergent, who works there. They are there. Increasingly, there are managers that you can talk to as well. So that's the biggest misconception that I hear about, Jerry, that keeps people out, that they're afraid of taking advantage of a program. No, this is for you. We're trying to overcome obstacles and barriers that have been put in your way unintentionally. So the tools that SourceAbled uses doesn't give you an unfair advantage. It is simply leveling the playing field for neurodivergent candidates against their competitors.
Yeah, thank you.
And I just support that. I mean, to me, I talk to job seekers every day in my role, and it's what I love to do. But what I encounter a lot is people not wanting to maybe take advantage of these programs because they feel like it's an unfair advantage, like they're taking a shortcut. And that's really not the case at all. What I like to say is we're not lowering the bar. We're taking the obstacles away to help you just go up and over even higher than you could possibly imagine. So it's not a shortcut. It's not, it really is just trying to level the playing field, make it equitable for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as we're moving forward, we're running a little bit short on time. So I'd ask our production team, can you go directly to our success stories? And there are some things that obviously we won't get to today that we can definitely get to in some of our future chats. But talk to me about some success stories.
So many success stories, and that's what fills me up. That's what drives me every day. That's why I do what I do. A couple that come to mind. One of my first placements when I started working in this field, which, as Dave mentioned, that was about 10 years ago. So it's been a while, but he was hired as a software quality assurance tester on an existing team, software testing team. And the first day that he came in, the very first day, he found a bug that had been existing in the software for 2 years, and it was costing the company millions of dollars. And he found it on day one. People were amazed and just so over the moon. And to him, this was a no-brainer. He said that bug stood out to him like it was in neon. He did not understand why it had been missed, why no one else saw it. And so that was a great way, a great start for me of really validating that these programs can work both for candidates and for employers. Recently, we had a hire as well, again in a technical position. Now, both of these stories are in technology roles, but I want to point out that we are hiring for every role, at every role you can think of, every level you can think of across multiple industries. So don't think that these are only for technology, people in technology, but this is another technology story. And we had a role for a full stack developer, and it was somewhat of an experienced role. They were looking for a certain level of experience. And we went out and we're starting to vet candidates and talk to candidates. And in that process, I came across a candidate who didn't have the requisite number of years they were looking for. So because this is a neurodiversity hiring program and we work with companies to look to screen in rather than screen out, we kind of went back to them to talk about whether they'd have flexibility in the number of those years. And yes, they were willing to do that in order to create an opportunity. Then in my conversations with this candidate, I found out that this guy, he lives and breathes code. This is what he does. He does it when he's sleeping. He does it in the shower. And then I found out he actually had his own podcast about technology, about coding, where he interviewed actually CEOs of major technology companies to really learn from them, to be able to know what they were looking for when they were hiring software developers. So because of that, because of the employer's willingness to adjust their requirements a little bit to understand that there have been historical barriers to employment for these candidates, so being able to be flexible to screen in, and then because of these transferable skills that this candidate brought, we were able to marry those to hire him in this full stack position. That was 2 years ago. He's still there today, being very successful. But what the one part I love about this story is when they were in the hiring process, asked him about his salary requirements and what he was looking for. And I think he asked for $35,000 a year. And let me just say, the salary for this role was significantly higher than that, because that's what he was making in the position that he currently had. I think he was working at a grocery store. So this changed his life. His family also contacted us because it changed their life, because they didn't know if, would he be living at home? Would they be supporting him forever? And now all of a sudden he had this income and he was able to move out and buy a car and do all those things that we all want to do. So that was a great story as well.
That's a wonderful story. No, thank you for that. Well, it looks like that's all of our time for now. So I want to say thank you to both Chelsea and Dave. This was great information. These were great stories, great advice. And thank you to our audience for joining us for this installment of our REDi Chat series. If you'd like to learn more about REDi, our REDi Chat series, our REDi program, you can go to Rangam and you can learn not just about REDi, but about our program solutions. We have like SourceAbled. Simply go to rangam.com. And if you want to go directly to SourceAbled, as you saw earlier in this series chat, you can go to sourceabled.com. There is going to be a downloadable for this video, so click on the downloadable link and you will see the content that we talked about today. So for all of us at Rangam, we will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.